Hi, welcome everyone, and thank you for watching our series, our policy series on diversity in STEM. I am Danielle Dean. I am the advocacy co-chair for the United Nations Association in the National Capital Area, and I am very pleased and privileged to be joined here today with State Senator Arthur Ellis, who is within the state of Maryland. And thank you, Arthur, for joining us.
You're quite welcome. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. Well, I would love to just kind of start off with quickly introducing yourself. You've got a great background in public service. You were in the Air Force, and then you were an adjunct professor, and you've also had some experience with the NAACP. So I would love to just learn a little bit more and tell the audience a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Always the question is, where do I start? So I'm an immigrant. I was born in Jamaica and moved to this country 50 years ago, and went to elementary school, middle school, and high school in New York. And after high school, I was given a STEM scholarship by the Air Force and finished up at University of Maryland, College Park, through ROTC, and entered active duty. And my first duty station was in Mississippi, Biloxi, Mississippi, where I spent over a year learning technology, communications, computers, programming. When I say communications, we're talking about communications equipment. You talk about telephones, computers, air traffic control systems, command and control systems in the Air Force for many years. Came off active duty, got my master's degree, and went in accounting, became a CPA, and continued my STEM work. And taught at the University of Maryland University College back then, now known as Global Campus, and maybe 3 other colleges in the DMV a few years back. And so one of the big things I also did in the STEM field was teach technology, continuing education classes for the Maryland Association of CPAs for many years. And so I have a deep background learning and practicing in the STEM area. And also, pivoted to, you mentioned my work with the NAACP. My work was as a volunteer. Okay. And so trying to, in Charles County, working with the principal of the Charles County branch of the NAACP over 20 plus years, and equity and inclusion issues in our county, and did quite well, got some really good results, and several years back, inducted into the Charles County NAACP Hall of Fame. So technology, inclusion, equity, I'm all in.
Well, it's fantastic. And now Maryland is very privileged to have you as a senator as well.
Yeah, thank you. Very kind. Yeah.
Well, awesome. I would love to talk a little bit about your work from in 2020 and 2021. You were part of the Senate President's Equity and Inclusion Task Force. And after the conclusion of the task force, there was a report that was published that kind of outlined the current state of Maryland in terms of inequality and economic inclusion for all citizens in the state. Would you mind sharing a few of the conclusions that were made and some of the recommendations?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So, question is, how many minutes do we have? So the committee, the Senate President's work group on equity and inclusion, we worked for over 6 months. We met virtually. And this was, I want to remind folks, time period. So this was right after the murder of George Floyd. And when, the entire country was up in arms with the disparities in policing in this country. And also that was right in the middle of COVID, when COVID was really decimating Black and brown communities across the US. And, Senate President Bill Ferguson said, we have to really take the lead to make sure we look at a the broad picture as far as equity inclusion is concerned. And so we had the House and the Judicial Proceedings, House of Delegates, and the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee. They focus on the police reform issues. And our work group, the Senate President's work group of equity inclusion, focus on health disparities, economic disparities, educational disparities, business disparities, and including disparities of representation in our own body, our own house, the Maryland General Assembly. And so we spent once a week, we met, I think it was 7 members, bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats on the committee worked together, and we hashed through a lot of issues. We had individuals who were specialists in their area come and testify before us and answer our questions. And we focused, like I said, on educational issues, health disparities, economic, contracting, not federal, I was in the federal space, but the state space, the state contracting, and the disparities that was there with contracts let out to minorities in the state. And so very detailed report. And we just didn't take that report and file it at the end of our tenure. We pulled out maybe the first year, 2020, like maybe 7 to 8 bills that we introduced, and most of them passed. Bills have to do with procurement, state buying of services. Bills have to do with representation of women in contracting. So simple, okay, if you're African American and a female, and you have a category African American female on the forms, which one do you pick? The rule was pick one. No, that's not right. It doesn't make any sense. You say exactly who you are, and that affected the numbers and the availability of contracts. So we put changes through like that really goes to the nitty gritty of government. If I spend too much time talking about it, you will yawn and get bored. But in the details, that's where we effectuate change. As a state legislator, my job is to work and to really attack the details and the stuff that's not really fancy and keep people up entertained, but that level of detail is what create opportunities. We change the rules to create opportunities for all Marylanders to succeed and prosper.
Yeah, absolutely. And specifically to those details, I know that over the last previous legislative session, a big, this was in the news a lot, was the education reform package that you guys were eventually able to successfully pass. I'm curious if you could spend some time talking a little bit about what are the priorities around education and building more diversity in STEM education around math and science for girls, women and girls in K through 12, and then if there's anything that's you're looking forward to in terms of like long-term building young professionals in STEM fields.
Yeah, and so that specific question, nuance area, fits into the big picture of the blueprint for Maryland future, aka the current reform. So Maryland, over the last 3 years, have adopted a reform to really zoom our educational system forward 20, 30 years to produce graduates from our K through 12 system who are ready to take on the world, especially in the technology field. So we look at working to get quality teachers, the most qualified teachers in the classroom, and to keep them in the classroom. And so we're looking at the minimum starting pay for teachers, $60,000. We're looking forward to having teachers become professionally certified. They have certification, national certification. And when they receive those certifications, they will get additional bonuses and salary increases. Currently, our best teachers, they do really well in the classroom, and they plucked out of the classroom and put into administration, right? And well, the pay is more in administration. And so, and to be honest, they can reach and help to plan more for more children, more schools. Instead of a teacher being in one school, they can be a supervisor over, say, math or STEM after school activities for 5, 10, 15, 20 schools. But nothing supplants that experienced teacher being in the school building and take them out of the central office. So what our reform have done is reward those excellent teachers to make them mentor teachers by increasing the pay and making it more attractive for them to stay in the school building, to work with new teachers, to work with others in their area, to really create that experienced workforce to teach our young people. Talk about math. It's really difficult to not just to teach, but to learn math, right? And so we need to focus on bringing those math and computer science teachers, chemistry, physics, all those STEM teachers into the school building and to keep them there, because it's very competitive. Where if you look at a teacher making, say, 60,000 starting a school building, whereas if they start with Amazon Web Services, right, they get 125,000, 130,000. But I do know a lot of young technology graduates from our colleges are going into teaching. Okay, so it's not just the pay; it's just the tremendous opportunity to influence the next generation for the greater good. So when we have more experience, when we have more technical teachers in the classroom, that'll help us in our STEM endeavors to really create that workforce. And could I just say also, I work with the Extension Advisory Services. You know, people think 4-H. People think 4-H is just, well, animals and farms. But now 4-H is really into STEM. My wife and I led out in robotics club for years, for over 10 years through 4-H. And we had equal number of ladies and young men in our club. And some of those young women have gone on to engineering careers. And it's just tremendous what being hands-on have done and contribute to the confidence that they have. To also say that we've also sent several of those young ladies to special programs at our colleges and universities, like Women in Engineering at University of Maryland College Park. And also computer programming, I think what they called it back then. There was a language they've taught at College Park to high school students. And it focused on bringing young ladies there. And I've known several folks who've gone to those programs who eventually majored in computer science and management information technologies. So what we need to do in going forward is to increase those opportunities in our school system and our K through 12 and our universities and colleges to offer those special programs, not just during the summer, but during the year. And that really help young people and also first generation boys and girls who really don't have good mentors to really get in and to see what the possibilities are in these fields.
Yeah, it's so good to hear you say that. We just had an interview with the International Telecommunications Union, and I asked, we're at UNA-NCA, we're all about bridging the global to the local, and we were having a conversation about, at this global level, we're talking about standard setting, and we're talking about policy development and how crucial it is to have diverse voices, not only in the policy, but in the research, right? Because the types of research questions you start off with often inform later policy conversations and identify challenges that might be different. than, what less diverse researchers might identify. And one of the things I was like, okay, well, if we're bringing this down to the local level, what can you tell, people within the DMV area about how they can support building, diversity in here at the local level? And she said, number one, building teachers, supporting teachers, building pay, making sure they stay and that they're adequately resourced in order to teach young people and to keep them engaged longer, and making sure you have those follow-up resources as well, as to, not only getting in the classroom, but how are you engaging them in the summer and how are they continuing on later on. So I mean, you hit it all right on the head, and it's really exciting to hear that, Maryland is as such a leader in this space.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, so with all of that being said, what is there left to do? How now looking forward, what kind of policy do you want to see get done? And then how can our members support the efforts that you guys have?
Yeah, excellent question. There's so much more to be done. And so as we build that educational system that will take care of our workforce 10, 20, 30 years into the future. And so you're looking at members being in the schools, being in the clubs, right? I mentioned robotics clubs. We always had a need for more more parents, technology folks to come in there and help us. And so volunteering, small group, large group, working with these groups in schools, take students on field trips, do some fundraising and put them in a bus and take them to the Air and Space Museum, both the one in DC and the one out by Dulles Airport, the Hobby Center. And that's what we've done over the years, load up buses and take these students to see these technological items, whether it's in museum or any other facility that we have so much of in the area, and just connecting with our young people. And so we look at, working with the schools, working with the clubs. We look at putting legislation in to help first generation students get to college. I've put in bills over the last couple of years to increase access to higher education for a lot of our students coming out of high school. In Maryland alone, we leave almost $2 billion in Pell Grants on the table, unclaimed, each year. And you talk to a lot of school seniors going on to college, you ask them if they, especially in underserved schools, about the Pell Grant and FAFSA and filling out that form, and just like their eyes kind of, gloss over, right? And so I sponsored a primary sponsor of a bill which passed, which authorized school of colleges and universities go into our high schools to help the counselors fill out those forms. And that's one of those things. Our counselors are overworked. Just having one counselor for each grade, that's serious challenge for our counselors. So we're looking at alternate ways, working with what we have available now, and we're getting these professionals in to get more people involved in our students' lives, to help them, whether it's, like I said, field trip or mentoring a STEM club or helping them fill out the FAFSA. And I'll continue to work to expand the opportunities for our students. We brought the Dan Moat IAP Incentive Awards Program from University of Maryland College Park to Charles County. And this year we have our first cohort of members who are first generation, generally fully eligible for Pell Grant, going to University of Maryland College Park, my alma mater, fully paid, and not just give them money and to set them loose, but they get the mentorship also. And they have like a 90+% graduation rate to those students who go through that program, which is close to 20 years old now. And we look at, getting our students and informing them about opportunities in other Maryland schools, like my son's alma mater, University of Maryland in Baltimore County, and Meyerhoff Scholars Program, where it's principally for underserved minorities to funnel them into STEM programs and careers and majors to go on to work on their PhDs in STEM. Great schools in Maryland, great programs. and I'm working to expand those access and opportunities.
That sounds wonderful. I appreciate your time. We're right out of time, but we'll be paying attention this legislative session. I assume you guys will start back up. I think you're still in, but you'll start back up in January. But we're going to be keeping an eye. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we started the second Wednesday in January.
Wonderful.
So
Well, we'll be keeping an eye
imminent.
out, and please let us know if there's a way that our members can continue to support this the legislation once it gets introduced and advance this very important topic.
Yeah, sure will. Thank you so much for this opportunity.